Thank you for waiting.
When you have a point.
It wasn't you.
That was a good one.
Yeah, that was, the timing was perfect.
I hereby call the regular meeting of the Midcoast Community Council for February 25th, 2015 to order. Will the council members introduce themselves, starting with my left?
Dan Haggerty.
Laura Stein?
Dave Olson.
Lisa Ketchum.
We also have Nicholas Calderon from the supervisor's office. We have two council members who are stuck in traffic. They will join us when they can. Aaron Deinzer and Chris Johnson. All right, with that, I think we're ready for the Board of Supervisors report. Nicholas.
Thank you. Couple announcements tonight. First, tomorrow night at 7 p.m. here at the Granada Community Service District meeting, the county will be hosting a meeting on the Surfers Beach Shoreline Protection Project, and we will be providing the final report to the community, providing timelines, letting everyone know all the most recent information, so that everyone's aware of what's going on and when they can expect to start seeing some construction work being done. We're in a very good spot for this project, and we're looking forward to seeing the outcome. And we look forward to briefing everyone tomorrow night. Once again, 7 p.m. here at the Granada Community Service District office. In the meeting room. 534?
504.
504 Avenue Alhambra. The other announcement is that the draft preliminary planning study for the congestion and safety improvement project, also referred to as the congestion management project. It's the pedestrian crossings, left turn lanes, raised medians, acceleration lanes throughout the Midcoast. The draft preliminary planning study is online, and there are two documents. It's the draft study, and then there's also an attachment PDF. I know that it takes some time to load and it's hard to use. We're working on getting a more easy, we're working on getting a document that is more cooperative on there. And so we're hoping to have that up by the end of the week. But the meeting for that, the community engagement meeting for that, is going to be March 11th at Cypress Meadows at 7 p.m. And I think that if everyone has an opportunity to look at the draft study and understand the designs and why those designs and the features included in the designs were selected, the meeting we'll be able to get into some good details in the meeting. So definitely recommend that everyone takes a look at that and reads the. Thank you. That was a very good point. And that's on the San Mateo County Mind Mixer page. The web link is smcspeakout.com. And you will have to create a profile in order to provide comments, but that allows us to better track comments and better organize the information that's coming in. So once again, that's SMC, as in San Mateo County, speakout.com. So I believe it's also on the MCC's. Is it on the MCC's?
Yes, that will be a special MCC meeting.
Yeah, so it's on the MCC's website, and the notice went out via Nextdoor. You can also find it on the county's Twitter page.
If it went to next door, it didn't go to Pillar Ridge.
It did not. We will have to work on, I will make sure that tomorrow we get it out to Pillar Ridge. I was actually unaware that I thought Pillar Ridge would be part of Princeton. I didn't realize you guys
We're
had.
in Moss Beach, but it's a neighborhood thing, so we started with that.
I will confirm with our social media coordinator who sent that out, and she does a great job, so we'll see what's going on with that. Other than that, I really don't have any additional announcements as I go through here. I do have one more announcement. I apologize. The Moss Beach Park is going to be receiving equipment upgrades, so the playgrounds and the structures are going to be upgraded. That work is going to start in the middle of March, and we anticipate the park will be closed for 8 to 10 weeks. In order to do that, they will have to close the the basketball hoop, the blacktop, in order to use that as a staging area. But once the park is reopened, you will see it's going to be full of new equipment. It's going to be a great park, and the community and the kids are really going to love it. So we're looking forward to that. And once again, that'll start in mid-March, and we'll be closed for about 8 to 10 weeks.
8 to 10, did you say?
8 to 10 weeks.
So you're saying what's existing there is going to be all removed?
Not all of it, but a lot of it will be.
The majority of it?
I don't know the percentage.
So Nicholas,
It'll be a noticeable difference.
Nicholas, presumably there are plans for that and drawings. Can you
Yeah.
send that to Lisa so she can put it on our website, please?
Absolutely.
Do you have any comments on the Clipper Ridge Park equipment?
I do not have an update on the Clipper Ridge, but I can find out.
Not Clipper, but yeah.
Yeah, Clipper Ridge. I do not have an update on that, but I will look. And actually, so we'll get those designs out. This is the last announcement, I promise. The last announcement is regarding the LED light pilot project, and this is something that we've been asked a lot about. So we are looking at 4 to 8 weeks. We received the confirmation that all the equipment had been appropriately ordered, and so now they have to manufacture it and send it. So I realize it's still some time off, but it is 4 to 8 weeks. Once we get those up, we will then engage with the community over what the thoughts are about the brightness, the color of the light, and we will make appropriate adjustments at that point in time. It's important that we get actual lights installed, and then we're able to have comments on the actual lights instead of having conversation on what people believe the lights are gonna look like. So if we have an actual hard example of what they are, then we can go from there. So though that'll be done in about 4 to 8 weeks.
Will you have actual statistics on the bulbs, for chance?
I really don't, I don't understand what you're asking.
You missed
So-
you missed my earlier statement that
Oh,
I
I'm
would camp
sorry.
in the DPW offices until I got them.
Oh, the specifications.
Oh, that's where you were camping. I caught just the end. Okay.
So like the
I'm sorry.
specifications of the lights?
Forget I mentioned it. I guess it's already been discussed.
Okay, yeah, so I'm gonna work on getting the specifications of the lights, if that's what you're requesting.
You work on that.
I'll see what I can come up with.
Do we know the location?
Post
Yeah.
office was the main proposal.
In each community?
Mm-hmm.
So since the lights were ordered, I'm sure you know the color, the temperature of the lights?
Not off the top of my head.
You don't?
That is what I'm asking for.
That's what he's asking.
That's pretty important, and we've known this all along. That's been an interest in the community, right?
Absolutely, but once again, it's important that we actually have lights in place so we can have tangible conversations, right? Saying, I don't like that brightness, I don't like that color, when you're not actually looking at it,
So
that
how-
doesn't do anyone any good.
So how many brightnesses and colors were ordered?
Two. So the way it works now is in
But you don't know
residential areas, there's a less bright light, and in commercial areas, there is a more bright light. One has I believe it's a higher lumen output, one has a lower lumen output. So we will put both of those lights at the post offices so people can see the differences, and you're not messing with the lights in residential areas.
Will they be brighter than what's existing?
They are comparable lights when you compare LED and low sodium, high sodium pressure lights. So they are measured differently, but they are the comparable lights.
So do you know if it will be brighter?
So they
What
shouldn't
we
be
have
brighter,
existing.
they shouldn't be brighter, they should be wider, which sometimes, my
Wider.
understanding is sometimes people will perceive that as brighter, but they will not be brighter, they may be lighter. I'm sorry, wider.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'd like to suggest that we defer the whole specifications until we actually have
Mhm.
them.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Physical install.
I'm sorry?
Who's gonna do the physical install work?
Public Works.
Mike,
You know what, you're
Or
not,
in advance.
nobody can hear you, right? You know that better than anyone.
Okay,
They need to plan in advance, because the one right next to the post office is completely blocked out by a tree that's gonna need trimming before
It's
they
gonna
can
be
do the
across
work.
the street from the post
Well, there's
office.
actually two in downtown El Granada, but you can't see one of them because the tree is covering it up.
All right. Are we
I'm
finished,
done.
Nicholas,
Yeah,
or
I'm
have we
done.
worn you out?
No. I can keep going, but I think that's all I have to report on.
Okay. Just to follow up on this, so there's been a long-standing process on these street lights. The demo lights are the first step in the process. There's also a lot of community interest in dark sky, color spectrums, a lot of other things about the lights, which is why we're pursuing the specs in parallel with getting the demo lights in. All right, any questions for Nicholas on his report, other than what we've already had? All right.
Oh, actually, a small question. Somebody said something about Clipper Ridge. Do you happen to know if there is something going on with Clipper Ridge, does that relate to the contract County Parks has with GCSD? That's not considered a mini park for the county, is it?
I am unaware of any connection between Clipper Ridge and GCSD. Once again, I'm not aware of anything. I know that County Parks has been in communication with that community, the surrounding community there, and I don't know if GCSD and County Parks have had discussion as to who will maintain and manage that park. I do know that GCSD has a survey out right now, and so, I think maybe the survey may shine light on what the future will be.
I just wondered, because which role, County Parks plays a role with GCSD, and then they also have a different role as it relates to Moss Beach Park. Okay.
And County Parks has already said they will not do anything with parks within the GCSD boundaries unless it's part of a GCSD county park agreement.
So we're saying there's no agreement, is that?
Not on that subject. Is it, Lisa, would you like to hear a full report from the?
No, not really.
Okay. All right, we'll take that up later. Sorry. Okay, we are now on public comment then.
Actually, an announcement there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do we have any other announcements from government officials?
As Nicholas just mentioned, he kind of stole half of my thing here.
Sorry.
The GCSD announcement is in people's mailboxes, or those within the Parks and Rec service zone of GCSD, which is Clipper Ridge, Princeton, El Granada, and the unincorporated part of Miramar. So it's a business-size envelope with a red message on the lower left corner, and the requested return date is returned by March 6th. And you can also instead do the survey on SMC Speak Out. They've apparently revised it after I sent in comments saying, you can't select multiple options. So they redid it and sent out a thing saying, okay, you can now go re-vote. So we encourage the broadest possible return rate on those to get a good feel for what the community as a whole really wants to see for Parks and Rec.
What's the deadline on that?
If I remember, it's March 6th.
March 6th. Okay.
So-
I think that's part of what's in red in the lower left corner.
Before you walked in, Leonard, a number of people were saying they had not yet received hard copy of that.
I think
And I certainly know I have not. Several
I got
other
it.
people said they had not.
I got it.
You may have moved to recently to have gotten on the list, but there should be extra copies in the office, and one way or another we can arrange to get you a copy if you don't want to do it online. So just contact the office and they'll make arrangements one way or another.
All right, any other government reports? Yes, Sabrina.
Hi, Sabrina Brennan. A couple things, just quickly. I wanted to report that the Resource Conservation District had a really fun 75th anniversary party locally, and it was extremely well attended. They will also be giving a similar presentation to the presentation they already gave the Midcoast Council at the next Harbor District meeting on March 4th, which will be in Half Moon Bay, in case anybody missed the last one here. And also wanted to mention that the Harbor District is how should I explain this? LAFCO is in process with a municipal service review of the Harbor District, And Martha, who is the director of LAFCO, was at our last meeting, and she gave a presentation about what's involved with that. And so it's the Municipal Service Review and the Sphere of Influence. And she will be coming out to attend a coastside meeting to give a similar presentation, because this was at our meeting in South San Francisco. I'm not sure what date yet, but that's coming. And I just wanted to make sure that the council was aware that that process was ongoing. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're on public comment. I have one speaker slip from Leonard. You're up.
You want to submit that for at once?
Item one. Oh, sorry, never mind. Okay. Does anybody wish to make any public comment? And yours said future agenda, if I read it right.
That was a topic, but public comment.
Okay, go for it. Sorry. I have trouble reading, obviously.
I have trouble writing too. Lynn Erickson from El Granada. I've observed as you've worked on your future agenda that the San Mateo County Parks presentation, which is now on April 22nd, is slowly evolving. It's now called the Midcoast Parks Forum, which I think is great. I had an exchange with your chair to talk about, wouldn't it be great if the GGNRA came and state parks came? He said, yes, I've been in touch with them. And as I think about it and look at this, I would also say that I believe the Parklands Access and Parking Study belongs in that same presentation, because it's all about parking to go to the parks. I think the newly formed GCSD has a role to play in that presentation as well. And all of these pieces, although they might in one sense make for a large meeting and presentation, really give people a total picture. It was about 5+ years ago or 6 that the MCC sponsored a Parks Forum.
We had one last year.
What's that? No, this was very large, larger than that. You had all the people there, really doing it. And I think you have a really great opportunity to do that in a large way, which you're on your way. So they support that. Thank you. Continue to advance public.
Yes, we are trying to do that. Any other public comment? All right, I will close public comment. We're on the consent agenda. I would like to bring up one other issue under the consent agenda. I would like to reorder our regular agenda to do the election later to give Aaron Deinzer a chance to arrive. Does anybody object to that? Okay. The other item on our consent agenda is the minutes from February 11th. Does anybody wish to not have that on the consent agenda? All right, then what? Entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
Second?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, carries. Then we are on to our regular agenda, and we will go to 4B, the Environmental Study and Tsunami Report. Lisa, your item?
Thank you. So we have a draft letter. On the website, we have the staff report written for 2 weeks ago, when it got pulled, because the staff report said the MCC had not commented, and actually we did comment last July, plus the Coastal Commission had not seen it yet. So this will be on the March 11th Planning Commission agenda, but so the letter consists of, so we have the Coastal Commission comments, and they are referenced in our letter, particularly relating to the tsunami report, which this project is a major remodel of the house on the shoreline on West Point next to the marsh. And it's, the house is was built at least before 1931. It mentions an aerial photo where it's there in 1931. And it's the picture most people are familiar with in 1946 tsunami with the water line above the windowsills. So they proposed to more than double the size of this house, and that is considered a remodel. And the letter actually surmises that perhaps this is because it's a non-conforming use. You couldn't build a house there because it's a waterfront district. But if they call it a remodel, then it can be done. So anyway, the letter reiterates the comments from our from last July, which related to we would like to see conditions to prevent future armoring, and particularly because the property includes the three or four parcels along the beach, which have not been consolidated, and so there's some issue of, couldn't this all, if they sold it later and then they'd want to build something on the beach. And so that was our concern we have in here about condition to prevent armoring. And also, if they could, the status of these parcels, whether they are actually separate parcels. And then new comments are, we defer to the Coastal Commission letter regarding the tsunami analysis. They have a very complete comment about that. The concern is that this house arguably is the most vulnerable in Princeton. It's at the low elevation end, next to the marsh, it's on the shoreline, and basically the tsunami report said, no problem with the tsunami there. Any way reaching that house would be less than a foot high. And granted, there's been a great breakwater built since this 46 tsunami, but the model that they used in their to come up with this was of a solid breakwater, much different than what we have here. So anyway, we supported the Coastal Commission comments. Interestingly, the report makes no mention of the 1946 tsunami in Princeton. Also, there's a neg deck, which we hadn't heard about, and it says that the house is not considered historic. However, they also mentioned that it shows up at this 1931 photo, so likely one of the earliest buildings in Princeton. And then finally, they say that the estimated life of this remodel is 50 to 75 years. The house is already at least 85 years old, so it's like when these shoreline projects, when they say, for the life of the project, it'll be safe, sea level rise and whatnot. But clearly, when they say the life of a project, often it's way longer. I mean, here's an 85-year-old house that they're now going to remodel, and it can live twice as long. So those were the issues we brought up in the letter. And I'm sorry I don't have a more polished presentation, but I've been really busy with some other stuff.
All right. Before we discuss it, can I have a motion to approve the letter as drafted?
I'll make a motion to approve the letter as drafted.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All right. Anybody have any comments on the letter or questions on the council?
No, I think it's an excellent letter.
Anybody else?
I would just say that with regard to the tsunami requirements, I realize this is an existing house, but I do think that, as Lisa intimated, that it's kind of an existing house that's having a house built up around it because they can't build a new one. But there is a new project going up upstream from there and far inland that is being required to have, residences starting on the second floor and certain heights and stuff. And so for the staff report to kind of wave away tsunami concerns right at the water, but require 12 feet or 15 feet of non-habitated first floor half a mile inland seems not to line up to me. So I'm glad that was called out in this letter because it just doesn't really make much sense.
All right. If there's no other comment or question from the council, I'll open it to public comment. Leonard, can I have you as the first one in?
This has come up before. Lisa and I are just not ever going to agree on this. I thought I had the county zoning book on my laptop, but I don't. But I have, over the years, looked at the non-conforming chapter many, many times, and the language in the non-conforming chapter, which always allows you to continue an existing non-conforming use, which means that the zoning was changed after the use was there, such that the new zoning no longer allows that use. You're always allowed to continue that use as is. And that's called existing non-conforming. And in the discussion of existing non-conforming, it unequivocally says you cannot expand an existing non-conforming use. Period. End of discussion. A bigger house is an expansion of the non-conforming use. And, you know, if we had a planning department that was honest and cared more about enforcing the law than accommodating applicants, they would have this position. It is ludicrous to say you can expand the house as a remodel. Just ludicrous. This is an expansion. It is blatantly illegal under the county zoning ordinance code.
Thank you. Sabrina, did you wish to speak on this?
Yes, thank you. So first I wanted to thank the council for paying attention to these details, because it seems like this one kind of flew under the radar. And I'm just getting caught up on this. It looks like there was a comment by the Midcoast Community Council on an early referral for a planning application, 7/23/2014, and it looks like I don't understand the whole process that happened, but it looks like that wasn't followed up on by the planning staff. So I'm really impressed that the council was paying attention and able to catch this, because I know you guys have a lot of other irons in the fire. So I thank you for that. And I do think that this is a really remarkable historic home in Princeton, and we don't have very many of those in that location. It's a pretty special spot. So it's always caught my eye as I think the most beautiful structure in Princeton. And there's some real dogs in Princeton. So it's nice to have that, you know, really interesting home there. Anyway, I support the letter by the council, and I also support the comments submitted by the Coastal Commission staff. And I'm definitely concerned about the tsunami issues, which have already been raised. So I'm glad that that was included. And I think the photo that's attached to the letter is very illustrative, because in the photo, which you guys didn't really talk about tonight, it shows the house, and it shows the house right after a tsunami came through, and you can see that the water level is halfway up the first floor of the house, so it's well past the windows. So that's a pretty, you know, impressive photo there. And with a picture like that, and there are other pictures from that same tsunami, which was in April, it was April 1st, 1946. It just seems to me that the staff at the county should be looking at things like that, and there's definitely some concern there. So anyway, I appreciate the letter and support it. Thanks.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to make a public comment on this matter? All right, Chris?
Just as a footnote to this, I believe that this project was the first project reviewed by the Coastline Design Review Committee in Princeton following the acceptance of the 2012 LCP. So it has been reviewed by CDRC, but it was reviewed by, I believe, the alternate for Princeton, Greg Sarab, who was the
No, he
representative.
wasn't there.
Yeah, he was the
Oh, I
representative
see.
for Big Wave, but he was not there for that one. My recollection is that the design was nice. It did try to reflect the existing structure, and there was concerns raised about blocking of views and things like that, but it was approved, and I don't recall any major issues as far as design review for that structure.
I could answer some. Okay, so this, can I? All right, so I do remember Leonard brought this up before about non-conforming uses and didn't quote this, the zoning ordinance. So I looked it up now, and it's section 6134.6, enlargement of non-conforming residential uses. A non-conforming residential use in a non-residential zoning district, e.g. a residence in an industrial zone, may be enlarged, subject to the issuance of a use permit and provided that the enlargement conforms with the following combining zoning district regulations. And I'm not going to look those up, but I mean, it all follows through. I did look this up last year before we commented the first time, and it technically, on the books, it works. They're not asking for any new, well, anyway, that's enough said. I forget what the historical aspect of it. I guess the LCP, when they first did it, they went through and there's an inventory somewhere in there about these are the historical structures, and this one isn't on it, and I suppose that if someone were interested, they could pursue that, something like the Main Street Bridge kind of a thing where you have to get it listed, but that hasn't been done. So technically that's what they're saying when they say it's not historic, but it does sound a little odd when it's so old. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good to have that clarification. I know that question's come up multiple times. All right, is there any other discussion on this item? Then I will call for a vote. We have a motion on the table to approve this letter as written. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, carries. Thank you. All right. I hoped that Erin Deinzer might be here by the time we started this one. Maybe she'll show up when we've got it. We are on to item 4A, the changing of MCC elections to even-year elections. This has been raised by various people in the community and at least two of the council members. The idea is to be consistent with quite a few of the other districts. Laura, this is your item. Go for it.
Okay. The Midcoast Community Council currently conducts council member elections on odd-numbered years, and the council is being asked to change the election of members such that it'll take place on the same day as a statewide general election in November of even-numbered years. The benefit is, number one, increased voter turnout, and then, of course, the decreased costs for the county as far as elections are concerned. What's important for the council members to know is that by voting to accept the change of the even-numbered year elections, all council members' terms will be extended by 1 year. However, if a council member resigns before the end of their extended term, the person elected or appointed to replace them is only going to be completing the remainder of that council member's term. I have noted in the packet materials the co-side entities with November even years. As of last night, the co-side Fire Protection District approved their resolution to change to even-numbered years. So the only outstanding for coastal districts that are not on even-numbered years is Coastside County Water District. I did talk with Dave Dixon and the general manager, and he said it really wasn't on their radar. And then the only other one is us. And so to increase the voter turnout and decrease the costs, I am suggesting that we approve the resolution which you have before you. I just got this today. And I would say that is it. Are there any questions on what has been presented?
I'd like to at least hear a motion and a second before we discuss.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve this resolution
Do I hear a second?
currently presented.
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, go ahead.
I don't have any questions, except, why didn't we think of this sooner? I mean, it's
Yeah.
great, I think it's a great idea, and I guess that's literally a legitimate question, because I'm always wondering, is there any reason not to do this? For me personally, just the increased voter turnout is worth doing it. We want to have as many people voting. I wish people would just vote because it's election day. But if we have to, piggyback on the general election to get more people to turn out to vote for their own community interest, then I think it's a great idea.
We can't argue?
Well, just on a theoretical basis, is there something that we're missing? Is there a catch that, Bill, you have an idea of like why we shouldn't do this? Oh, yeah. Is there a reason that we're just not seeing?
Well, wait, we'll get to public comment in just a second.
I'm sorry, Dave.
It's all right, you jumped the gun a little bit, that's okay. I don't think there's gonna be a lot of public,
Yeah.
a lot of council discussion on this. I would like to hear from everybody. Dan, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, no, it's about saving money, it's about getting more people involved with who will be electing the council members. So, it's a great thing, more accurate account of what the community wants.
Okay. Laura, you're obviously in favor, anything else to add?
Yes, I am.
Lisa?
Oh, I think in general, it makes excellent sense. If you're a current council member, you have to stop and think, well, gee.
Yeah, exactly.
But, in the bigger picture, that's probably more important, is the bigger picture. And, if something comes up and you can't fill out your term, that could happen to anybody. So, I'm fine,
Okay, and I'm fully in favor of this. I can see perhaps some members of the public saying we're extending our terms without a vote and being upset about it, but I don't think that's likely to be a major issue. It did not come up as a big issue at GCSD nor MWSD when they did it. I don't believe, even when Half Moon Bay did it, there was much objection. There was a lot of, yes, why didn't we do this earlier? All right, then.
Just on that, I think our council is different in that sense also, because it's not like, oh, gee, I'll get an extra year. It's like, oh, gee, I get an extra
Exactly.
year. So.
Some see it as a punishment rather than a privilege. All right. I will open this for public comment, and Leonard, you're again first up on this one.
Two things, easy one first. I would suggest that you delete the third whereas, because everything that's in it is in the therefore be it resolved.
We don't write that. Comes from county council.
Written by county council. I would highly recommend just leaving it as is.
GCSD is like a whole page.
Yeah.
But our lawyer gets paid by the word. So, now somebody asked what's the downside, and I had, when this was being batted around in Half Moon Bay with the petition, because the council refused to do it, so that it had to be a citizen initiative, I was against it for one particular reason that I've since been talked out of. But my concern at that time, and I want to stress this is no longer a concern of mine, is that for all these little agencies, we're way down at the end of the ballot, and some people have a problem turning pages or something, and some people only vote, they'll vote for president or governor and senators and sort of give up after that. And so, there's the question of do people vote all the way down the ballot? But I recently, before GCSD considered it, I read some study, which is online, And the study happened to choose California to analyze because I think we have a lot more cities than any other state at something like 483 cities. And the diversity of California, so they thought that California was a good choice to study. And they basically decided that there's a number of reasons that limit public engagement, which, part of that is voter participation. And a significant part of that was consolidated elections. The conclusion of the study was that the single most important thing you can do to increase citizen engagement and voter turnout is go to consolidated elections coinciding with presidential and gubernatorial elections. Amusingly enough, the second thing they called out was for those of you who remember your junior high school civics, in strong mayor cities, the engagement was better than in weak mayor cities. Weak mayor means you have a city manager and the mayor is just the council chair. And that was a really fascinating conclusion to me. The study came out very strongly against city manager government. So obviously, at this point, I support the resolution.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak on this issue? Sabrina?
So I just wanted to support the council's decision to move to even year elections. As probably everybody knows here, voter participation in California is really not doing well these days, and that's a sad fact. In this county, voter participation is slightly higher than the other counties in California, probably not all of them, but a lot of them, which is good. So it's good that our voters are a little bit more engaged in San Mateo County, but overall, it's down everywhere. And I think that there are a lot of special districts and city councils and advisory bodies like this one that are looking to do things like this because the voter turnout has just been so bad. So I think it makes sense. I wish more people would vote. And I wonder what's going to happen with the odd year elections, because there's going to be less and less on the ballot and less incentive for people to vote in those elections. So, it's sort of an interesting predicament and kind of a interesting experiment to see how all this works out. But no, I appreciate that that you went through the trouble to work with the county to make this happen. And obviously the county put time into working on the resolution. And so I appreciate Nicholas's work on that and Supervisor Horsley's effort in county council. And thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, I will close public comment. I don't think anybody's proposing amending this in any way, so let's just call for a vote. All in
For
favor?
Lisa,
Sorry, go ahead.
For Lisa, I thought I should give the full motion.
Sure.
It would be approval to adopt our resolution 2015-1, requesting our biennial election be changed from odd-numbered years to even-numbered years in conjunction with general elections, even-numbered year elections. And that's taken from the resolution.
Thank you. All right, since we now have slightly different wording on the motion, I'll ask for a second again.
I'm sorry.
It's fine.
I'll second that.
All right. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, it carries unanimously. Thank you very much, everyone.
So if you guys don't mind, I wouldn't mind just giving you guys just a brief update as to what the process is from here.
Please do.
So from here, that resolution, you guys will send that resolution to the county, and you'll send that to the clerk recorder's office. They will do an assessment of the request to move it from the even to the odd, and I'm sorry, odd to even. And, and then they have to bring it before the Board of Supervisors within 60 days. And then the Board of Supervisors has to approve the request.
All right, and so just the general clerk recorder's office email, I'll look that up on the website.
Yeah, and you know what I'll do is I will find out who the specific person is, and I'll get you their contact.
My understanding from what the special districts had to do is that we have to send it to the Board of Supervisors, and then the Board of Supervisors asks the county clerk recorder, can they accommodate it? And if the county clerk recorder says, yes, they can accommodate it, then the Board of Supervisors is required by state law to approve it. But we had to send ours to the supervisors, not to the recorder's office. Maybe you should just send it to both.
Yeah, let me talk to county council, the attorney who I worked with.
Yeah.
You and I will work.
Follow up with county council, let me know in the next day or two.
Yeah, so, but the board has 60 days to act on
Right.
this.
That, for those who may have missed it, it has to be happening 240 days before the election, and that's March 6th. So that's why this is a sort of a tight timeline.
Yeah, so the 240 days is the requirement for the body request.
The body to
Right.
request, yes, which we have just done.
Yeah.
So we're in
And
there.
and I will send this one in hard copy email too, because we've had some problem with email. So once you get the correct people, let me know.
Perfect.
All right. We are on to agenda item 5 then, council activity, meetings, correspondence, et cetera. I'm going to jump in with something just because we had it on an earlier agenda. For those who didn't hear, the sale of the Daughters of Charity system was approved by Attorney General Harris. So we'll have Seton in some form for at least the next 10 years.
Do you know what the added conditions were?
I did not receive the details, I assume.
I have some details.
I mean, I saw what was in the LA Times and a few other places.
They said they changed that they had to keep the facility open for 10 years rather than 5 years, but for Seton Coastside, it's going to be maintained as a long-term care. Didn't say anything about emergency.
Also, it was my understanding that Prime has to accept those conditions too, that they have not yet formally accepted those. So
That is
this is
correct.
not officially done and done. The Attorney General has approved it with the conditions, but Prime then has to come back with their response to those conditions.
Yep.
And I'll wait till the next thing.
All right, so, Chris, any other activities or correspondence?
No.
Dan, anything?
No.
Laura?
Just briefly, I've been working with the CDRC to help in improving some of the processes, and so what's really being focused on is requests for, as the MCC has made, for digital plans, as well as their website right now is rather difficult to get around, and so they're trying to make it more user-friendly for the community, and by making links to the planning database, as well as to the online agendas and different types of process issues like that. So that's been really positive. And, yeah. So, oh, I know, the next, I guess I'll announce it here. The next meeting is March 12th, and that takes place here in this room. On the agenda it's a 3-story project. It will be residential directly behind the Miramar restaurant, and I don't know if a lot of people are aware of that. The story posts should be up within 10 days. They have to have them up 10 days prior to the meeting, which will be March 12th, and I believe that's on at 2:30.
I don't understand behind the restaurants for a parking lot.
It's fronting on Magellan.
It's behind the restaurant parking lot.
They had store poles up there one time.
Yeah,
once
yeah.
before.
Right, and
Couple
then,
months ago.
They took them down.
Yeah, they took them down, and it's come back to CDRC a second time.
Right. The other thing that is on that agenda, just so people know, is the very first house on the Paper Street, 15th Street in Montera. And it is the top lot on 15th Street. I'm assuming they're going to get access off of 14th.
The agenda says it's in Moss Beach, it's rather confusing.
Yes, well, there's no official boundary line between the two, although generally people agree the creek is the boundary line.
But there
And the
is a-
subdivision has 16th Street and the Montero subdivision.
So there is a 15th Street. Okay, good.
There is a paper 15th Street. There is no actual 15th Street. So, something to watch for.
Give it an
I did not look at the actual plan request, so I don't know what the plan is for access. I'm assuming they are not expecting the county to build 15th Street in the canyon
I have a couple of
there.
items.
Sure.
So the Philipporn RV Park, in response to our January 28th letter to the Harbor District, Commissioner Nicole David arranged a meeting or coffee with a representative from the MCC, which was me, and the RV Park lessee for a preliminary discussion of the issues. So we met on February 13th, and the meeting went well. We discussed 2 out of 4 concerns raised by the MCC, coastal views and glaring lights. The leaseholder agreed to use dimmer light bulbs and to look into options for shading the existing historic light fixtures. Turns out those light fixtures are salvaged from the city, they're really old. I guess they weren't concerned about glaring lights in those days. Anyway, and he also agreed to trimming the trees along the fence line and plant some California native shrubs to start growing lower vegetation, and he will discuss more solutions for vegetation adjustments with his landscape architect. The communication between the leaseholder, MCC, and Harbor District will be ongoing for feedback and further exploration of solutions for concerns. Also, Harbor Commissioner Nicole David has a beach replenishment committee with Commissioner Paravano, and the committee met on February 17th. They approved, so we had discussed writing to the Coastal Regional Sediment Management Plan Group for Pillar Point to Santa Cruz, and the Harbor District approved that letter to go to that group for a surface beach pilot project for sand replenishment with Pillar Point Harbor dredged material. So that's a good first step. And 7th Street encroachments was heard at the Planning Commission today. 2 years later, 3 years later, down the road, okay. So there were 2 permits closely related. One was the DPW permit to take down the old fence and put in guardrails, but they were going to still leave a portion of that fence that's in the right-of-way. And then the other permit was from the resident there, Westerfield, and they wanted to put a new fence, 4-foot-high wire fence, to fence off about 300 square feet of the right-of-way to expand their front yard. So the result is, there were only 4 commissioners there. They voted 4-0 to approve both projects with a couple of amendments. The result, basically the result is the 300 square feet of public right-of-way on the bluff top, they have been given the easement to have that. That will be fenced off for them. And, but as you look at the fence, as you look at the end of the street, you see the fence there. The part that the county had proposed to leave of that wooden fence in the right-of-way, that will be changed out for the 4-foot wire fence to match the new fence that they're gonna put in. So, and also the guardrail that's going to be in front will be bollards, so you can walk through, you don't have to climb over it. So basically, what we've gained is, as you look at the end of the street, all the old fence is gone except the one small piece that's actually on their property. And the view will be open except for, of course, the cypress tree that's behind the fence. And then they're not going to take the hedge out. And then you can walk in there, and access to the Marine Walk is maintained. There will still be a sitting area, but not as big as it was. And they the commissioners asked if something could be done about the hedge or other vegetation issues, and they were told that DPW said they don't do vegetation. And so the commissioners were advised that they could say, well, you know, it would be nice if county parks could get involved and I mean, they couldn't make that a condition, but they put that out there, and so the message will be delivered. So that wasn't actually part of the motion, but there's some hope that county parks would get involved to spruce up the area or maintain that, whatever. Anyway, so I think I got it all in what happened. The permits are actually, they're appealable to the Coastal Commission, but I question whether the Coastal Commission would, I mean, I don't know for sure, but basically at this point, all you're saying is, we don't want this wire fence fencing off 300 square feet of the bluff, and I don't know, anyway, okay, so that's what happened.
Question?
Yes.
I mean, I can understand the Coastal Commission not wanting to take that up, but what was the rationale for the planning commission to bequeath 300 square feet of public right-of-way to these private property owners?
We're still
Well,
asking ourselves
they
that.
didn't give a rationale, they just voted for it. And so this is a eye-opener. So personally, for me, having been deeply involved in this project for a long time, and we had meetings here with county council and Peggy Jensen, I forget what her title is, and it was, you know, just butting heads, no understanding, or it's just like, you know, we said one thing, they said, and it seemed like, well, if we could just get past these two people, maybe someone would hear our reason. And apparently, no, there is no one to hear that reason. It's all the county staff and all the planning commission, and apparently that's just how San Mateo County does it. They're very generous with encroachments in the right of way.
One key piece I thought you left out
What?
was waiting while the applicant contacted the owner of the land.
Should I tell all the anecdotes? So yes, the actual owner of the land now is the original Westerfield son who lives in Florida. His brother was there. So the question was, would they agree to taking down this section of fence and having the wire fence there? And he said, well, no, he'd have to ask his brother. So then there was some trouble reaching him. So then they rearranged the agenda. We had to sit through this other old item and get back to us till noon. And finally we had the answer, and the brother said, yes, he'd be open to the wire fence there, but he would like to have an archway. And, but at that, the commissioners balked, and they said, no, it should be no taller than 7 feet. And so since the actual owner wasn't in the room, it looked like the commission was going to deny it. And then the brother said, no, we'll go for that. So that's how it is, no taller than 4 feet.
And I would add one other interesting thing that happened is county council was asked by Mary Lorenas as a representative of Surfrider if a member of the public could request another encroachment permit to request that fence be removed since it is remaining in the public right-of-way. And the answer was yes. And furthermore, county council said the land on the house side of the fence remains public property. So while we're not allowed to do anything to the fence, apparently the public can actually access that area unless they completely block it off.
Well, just to
Speaking of-
clarify, it's not actually public property in the sense of fee title.
Yeah, sorry, it remains a public right-of-way is the correct way to phrase it. Yes, thank you
I
very
don't
much.
remember that part, than him saying that the public could go inside the.
He did not say anything about public going inside, but he did say it remains public right-of-way, and that is the definition of
Right,
public.
the
And that's-
street has not been abandoned.
And the trail that goes around with the view,
That's open.
right? That's what we're
That's
talking
Yeah,
open.
about.
so they further modified the original permit to angle the last section of fence at 45 degrees. That had happened between staff and the applicant before the meeting, and the planning commission did go with that. So the existing path will remain accessible.
And Lisa, the question on the bollards, did they give you any indication of the diameter
No,
and
they said that.
how, the spacing of them and the
No,
height?
they said that the planning commission should not try and specify anything like that, because the way it works, the county protects themselves from liability claims, but they'll have a standard design, like this is how we do our end of street project. And if they all follow those things, then they're protected from liability if something happens. And so they said you need to leave DPW with the leeway to put it in the way they think it ought to be. So that's how they were instructed. And so they just said, change it from guardrails to bollards. It was interesting because they said that these bollards had been considered and that everybody got early referrals and talked about their preference, but of course we didn't, once again, but whatever.
Yeah.
But
Well, they
anyway, it
said the
turned out-
bollards could end up uglier than the guardrail.
So, maybe when the
Higher,
early,
probably.
maybe when the bollards were on the
Probably
table,
higher.
there was an explanation of what they looked like, but we never saw that.
They were actually left mistakenly in the draft CDP application.
Yeah.
And Coastal Commission commented on that, but it wasn't very detailed. I did comment that had we seen that, we would have indicated we preferred the bollard and that I felt the community would have preferred it as well. Fortunately, the Planning Commission went with it. I believe that the standard spacing is such that ADA compliance remains between them. I did explicitly request that that area be accessible to anybody with a walker, or wheelchair, or stroller.
I would recommend going down that street in a wheelchair.
I know. Or on the Marine Walk.
Yeah, it's not really.
The Marine Walk, actually, you could probably do, but, yeah. The point is, there are people who go out there with strollers. I've seen them multiple times. So if you get out there, and this is a jogging stroller, if you can get out there in a jogging stroller, you can get out there in a wheelchair. There was one other related item on this. One of the commissioners suggested putting up a sign saying this is dangerous. County Council recommended against that for the same reason he recommended not specifying the bollards.
The same reason recommended.
Not trying to specify the bollards, that we wanted to follow the standard design practice, that he recommended the commission follow allow DPW to follow standard design practices to remain immune from liability lawsuits. So it was an
I have one
interesting
more
meeting.
thing.
Go for it.
Oh, I bet we're done with 7th Street now?
I think so.
I just want to say thank you, Lisa, for all your hard work on that project.
Well, Dave, Laura, Mary Lorenas, Len,
Yeah. Lenny Roberts
Lenny
from
Roberts.
CGF.
Karen Wilson.
Yeah.
Wilson, we were
Yeah.
there.
And one person that we have not mentioned yet, who without which this might not have happened, was Don Horsley, helped push this along. So that was actually a good thing.
Why do you smile at Nicholas?
Because he's told me how
I'm an
frustrating
arm
it's
of-
been trying to get this to come forward. You know?
Which, by the way, does include a lot of Nicholas's time. So thank you very much, Nicholas.
Yeah, I have to say, it was in August 2013 that Supervisor Horsley told me, yes, I think this front fence needs to come down, just give me a little time. So that's.
This was passed by government.
Okay, so I had one other thing. There's a lot of talk about the traffic next door and everywhere. I mean, you know, particularly weekends. And so I wrote Captain Mike is, CHP Captain Mike is so responsive. So, he had previously given, you know, some contacts with this. It's the CHP San Francisco area that are responsible up there in Lindomar. And so anyway, I wrote him an email and included the Pacifica Police Chief, because I had been told in the past that he'd be that the police there would be the ones for those intersections. What I was saying is that if they had an officer out there to direct traffic, it might help this backup at these intersections, such as on a nice weekend afternoon. And the Pacifica Police Chief wrote back and said, the Pacifica City Manager and Public Works Director have been made aware of the problem. And the CHP San Francisco area Captain Christopher Sherry replied, I would have to agree that this issue is just going to get increasingly worse as we approach the summer months, and due to the lack of snow presently, it's my opinion that people will start flocking to the coast during these last few months as opposed to the mountains, which are usually ski months. As we all know, the ski season is probably over for the most part, so this increase in traffic does not surprise me. I actually think traffic control, or, you know, an officer there at our intersection near Lindomar might give some relief to the problem. It will most definitely be needed by latest May. And he was saying this to the police chief guy, and I was just copied, so maybe he's nudging him to do that. So there's some hope. Anyway,
There
that's all.
was one other piece of information on that. Caltrans did redo the light timing somewhat to favor the traffic that has to go through the intersection and turn as you go north. So that did improve the flow.
Specific intersection you're referring to?
The Lindemar,
The
the Lindemar
San Pedro
detour.
Bridge detour place.
But I say one at Lindemar or the one?
At
they're
Lindemar,
both.
at Lindemar.
Okay. One at Lindemar.
So they slightly retimed the lights.
Can I say something just really quick? I just wanted to mention that.
Have you?
Come up to the podium, please.
I hadn't planned to talk about the traffic, but since you guys brought it up, I live in Moss Beach at the Cypress, near the Cypress intersection, which is where you turn to go to the Moss Beach Distillery. So you guys all know where that is. And the traffic on the weekends, starting in the afternoon, has been backing up past Cypress towards El Granada to the point where I have, for 3 hours, taken my car down Cypress to pull out onto Highway 1 and had to turn around and go home because it was just gridlock. And I couldn't get, you can't get to the city if you're, or you can't get to Pacifica for sure. So it's really bad, and I think it's bad for business too. So that's my thought.
All right, Erin, do you have any communications?
Yeah, I did just want to jump in. Apparently, Captain Sherry is going to become maybe a new BFF to the committee. But at any rate, I finally made contact with him today after I had contacted originally the San Francisco CHP 3 weeks ago, and then sent a more than gentle nudge in their direction yesterday because I hadn't heard back from anybody. And Captain Sherry phoned me this morning early, and I talked to him, and without going into anything at length right now, he and I are going to be meeting next week so that I can physically show him where the issues are in regards to parking specifically, and also various and sundry photos I've taken over the weekends, including a couple last weekend from Michigan who were not only parked where it says no parking, but had set up a tripod and were doing selfies out on the cliff next to the sign that said no hiking or climbing. So, I mean, it's pretty much gotten to the point where it's ridiculous. And apparently he's also reached out to Caltrans to talk to them about replacing some of the signs. And additionally, he's also talked to somebody over at the Sheriff's Department to see if they can get some additional assistance out here. One thing I did want to just kind of let everybody know, which I didn't, is that when the CHP issues a parking ticket, they actually get none of the revenue. They are funded solely by registration fees that we pay to DMV. And so if they issue a parking ticket, all of that money goes to the county. There's not, and their primary function, of course, is not issuing parking citations. So one of the other things I told him I'd like to talk to him about is, I don't know what the correct term for it is, but perhaps it makes sense for another agency to actually be the ones issuing parking tickets rather than the CHP in that particular stretch. Anyway, see where that goes.
Sheriff's Department issue parking tickets.
I
Well,
mean,
see, Captain
they
Mike
can.
approaches this from a different perspective. He says these are opportunities for education.
And I have seen the Sheriff's Department issuing tickets
Their
out there.
policy is that they don't, they've essentially told me that.
Well, at any rate, that's what I'm reporting back from the CHP.
Yep, thank you very much. All right, I think that's the end of council activity. Future agendas. As Nicholas said and we discussed earlier, our next meeting will be March 11th at Cypress Meadows, going over crossings and medians. That'll be a dedicated meeting.
Is that a county meeting or an MCC meeting?
It is an MCC meeting.
We don't all have to sit in the front, do we? I mean, how do you want to set that up?
Let me talk with Kendall.
Isn't Kendall going to run the meeting?
Yeah, I think, Kendall's gonna run it. Let me talk
Are
with
you
Kendall and
gonna
see how
need
she
to be in
wants,
the front, will you?
let me see where she wants people sitting.
Because it makes the microphones complicated.
Yeah, let me talk with Kendall and see how she
Alright.
wants it set up.
Right, it will be a dedicated meeting in that we will not have other council business, but I assume we will still have public comment as an MCC meeting.
think we have to do that.
Hopefully be short. The March 25th meeting, we're going to hear about the Plan Princeton draft preferred plan. There will also be a very short presentation from the Half Moon Bay Yacht Club. Even though the Princeton plan will be a long item, I'm going to have the Yacht Club item first since it is related to Princeton. We have April 8th was going to be a dedicated meeting on
Connect the Coast.
Connect the Coast, thank you. That is now going to be a separate county meeting sometime between the 19th and the 26th, most likely. Hopefully not on top of our regular 25th meeting.
Can I
and-
suggest that April 8th be, we might still have a meeting here on Connect the Coast side to give us an opportunity for discussion and comment on that topic?
Are you requesting that we have county people here?
No,
Okay. Yes, that's certainly a reasonable agenda item.
just as an agenda item, I'm
Yeah,
saying.
The only other agenda item, I moved the Devil Slide Ride presentation from the 11th, I'm sorry, from the 25th to April 8th, since April 8th was no longer a dedicated meeting. And as Len noted during public comment, April 22nd, we'll have a Midcoast Parks Forum at Cypress Meadows, similar to the one that we had over at the Fabrics Event Center last year. And I just realized while we were sitting here that GCSD is now a parks agency. So if GCSD would like a representative there,
On which date?
that will be on April 22nd, a Wednesday. So you can think about that and let me know.
Send me some information, we'll have to agendize it for March.
Okay?
Can I make a request for potential
Well,
agenda item?
before you do that, does anybody else have any other agenda items upcoming?
None, and again, I still intend to bring a agenda item about the Seton Coast side, and I hate to keep saying it'll come, but I am now waiting to see what Prime's position is. It just doesn't seem to have any benefit to have an agenda item before we know what all the
Understood.
the details are. But if anybody has any thoughts on what questions they'd like to ask, things they'd like to see from such an agenda item, please send me an email, chrisjohnson_mcc@yahoo.com. I'm very interested in what everybody has to say about that and think about that.
So this is, you're gonna write a letter, a draft letter from the council?
No. My vision right now of an agenda item for Seton Coast side is kind of a informational, like, here's a representative of Prime, here's, to answer questions from the community regarding the decision of the Attorney General, Prime's response to that.
So
And,
forum.
yeah, basically, like, here, I want Prime to come and talk to the community in a way that they have not done yet.
Great.
So but if you have other ideas, other thoughts, things that you're wanting, information that you're wanting, this is our chance, I think.
Okay, thank you. Glenn?
The traffic comments basically raise one issue for me that I think the council should address as a separate agenda item, independent, so that it doesn't get buried in the bigger picture regarding the transportation. And that is that the intersections that were signalized at Coronado and at Frenchman's Creek are a major part of the problem with backups on going south on commute mornings, going north on commute evenings, and all day, every day weekends. Both of those intersections were done wrong. There's no storage lanes. And anybody who understands the math knows that you have to have storage lanes when you put in a signal or you back up traffic. And that's exactly what happens, and you can see it on Waze. And you can see it when you're there on the ground. When you're coming north, once you get past Frenchman's Creek, the traffic speeds up, and then once you get past Coronado, it speeds up again. And going south in the morning, Coronado is a disaster, and Frenchman's Creek is a disaster. So I think the Midcoast Council has to put a very strong request into the Board of Supervisors, that the Board of Supervisors get the Coronado intersection fixed and twist arms to get the Frenchman's Creek intersection fixed. Because things are just going to get astoundingly bad until those two intersections are fixed. And I will appeal all the way to the Coastal Commission any traffic signal proposals that don't include fixing those two intersections first.
Right. I will say that Connect the Coast Side has studies at those intersections. I don't remember what the proposals were for them. I've still got to go back and reread that.
I don't want it to get buried, that's why I'm asking for a separate agenda.
I understand what you're saying, and I think we will almost certainly end up with follow-up meetings on Connect the Coast Side. I am reasonably sure that some segment of the community will not agree with the proposals that become preferred proposals. So I foresee a number of agenda items on that over the next few years. So, yes, I will certainly keep that in mind. Thank you. Sorry, I thought I had one other thing on the agendas. Oh, yes, so during public comment, I think it was when you brought it up, the Midcoast Parklands access and parking study. That draft has not yet been completed. It was supposed to have been completed by now. I think it's certainly appropriate to discuss that at the Parks Forum, and that was my suggestion to Christine, but I have not heard back from her on that yet. I need to do her again. All right. Somebody wish to make a motion to adjourn?
I will make a motion to adjourn.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
So, for the work thing, you're asking